Hey YouTube, in this video I'm going to be talking about how to design a plyometrics workout for your week and just your entire season. So before we actually talk about the workout, it's important that we understand a few things. First of all, with plyometrics, less is more. This is true on the track, but it's especially true. I mean, they're both about equally as true, but it's extremely true with plyometrics. In fact, there was a study that showed that people who did less reps for plyometrics outperformed those who did more reps when it came to speed and explosiveness after a while. So we should just go to show that just because a high quantity can be done doesn't mean it should be done. Because when you do a lower quality or a lower quantity of work, the quality goes up and you have to focus on each and every single rep even more to get the most out of it. So we have to make sure that when we're trying to make our own program for plyometrics, we understand this. Also, it's important we understand that we generally don't want to do any more than about 120 touches in a workout. This is only a general number, to be honest. For example, if you're doing lighter activities like extremely low intensity pogos, then you can obviously exceed 120 touches if you want. Don't have to, but you can if you want. If that was the only thing you did in the entire workout, just pogos again and again and again, you can exceed 120 touches. However, if you was going to be doing unilateral depth jumps with a jumper afterwards, so that would be 2 touches in total, that is something extremely high in intensity. And if that was the only thing you did in your workout, 120 touches for that would be too much, which just go to show well that the 120 touches are general, and you have to kind of have an understanding of the value of each workout you're doing, how the value of that would be when it comes to these touches that you have to stay within. Now we've got that out of the way, let's look at how we would actually design a plyometrics workout. So there's 2 types of plyometrics, like main ones. You've got ones that focus on vertical plyometrics, and you've got ones that focus on horizontal plyometrics. As sprinters, we need to make sure we do both, because when our foot touches the ground, at first we're putting in, I believe it's horizontal force, and then as our foot comes off, that's when we generate vertical force. We should just go to show that we also need to be doing both if we actually want to be successful sprinters. We can't focus more on one than we do on another. We need to be doing both. And when you consider the most common types of plyometrics you think of for sprinters, if you go sprint specific, would usually just be bounds. That is both a horizontal and a vertical movement in one, which just go to show that if you want to get better at bounds, one of the best moves you can do for sprinting, then you also need to work on horizontal and vertical forces if you want to improve. You can't just do bounds. Whilst improving in bounds will get you better, you can't just do bounds. So when we're doing our workouts, we want to look at 2 areas, the verts and the horizontal. And we want to make sure we have separate days for this. We don't want to mush them all in together, because whilst you can mush them all in together, the chances are, if you're doing higher intensities, you're going to be overdoing your touches, or what you're going to end up doing is you're going to split your workout into 2. So let's say you're going to do like 10 box jumps and 10 broad jumps, and and that's 20 touches in total. But let's say your maximum touches was 10 in each workout. That would mean if you was going to keep them mushed in together, you're going to have to do 5 box jumps and 5 broad jumps, and then have the same thing in the other day. But what would make more sense is just separate them into different days. So that way your body's actually able to focus more on one individual movement without having to do this. And then before you can really start to understand what's going on, move to a different movement where it's essentially performing in an opposite direction, it makes much more sense to split them into 2. So we want to make sure that the horizontal and the vertical stuff are separate. Once we've made them separate, we want to make sure that we have the right amount of touches for everything. We want to make sure that the reps and the sets don't make us go over these touches. So we could just do this in 2 days generally. We want to make sure that we stay within 120 touches for one day and 120 touches for another day. Once you've got that down, we want to look at the exercises that we can actually use to do for plyometrics. Generally, we want to pick the ones that you're the worst at, because these are you don't want to ever look at the ones you're the best at, because they're either too easy or your body has adapted to the stress. So you want to make sure you're focusing on things that your body hasn't adapted to. You'll be able to tell whether you've adapted or not by how hard the movement is. It's not so much that the movement itself will be hard, but you'll be able to tell by how much distance you're picking up. If you're not getting much distance, then, and it's just hard to even produce force, then you know that there's a problem here we need to fix. Maybe it's because you're not firing all of the muscles you're supposed to be, because plyometrics are very similar when they're performed properly to sprinting. So when you're doing your plyometrics, you want to make sure you're using your hips and your glutes. You might only be able to use one, or one at a time generally. So this would usually be your hips first and then your glutes afterwards. But it's important that we use both of them, especially not neglecting the glutes, because the glutes are what will allow your leg to straighten out so you can actually get height. So if you ever feel like you're stagnating your plyometric journey and you're not improving as much as you want it to be, there's a good chance that you're not using your glutes, which could be a detriment. So for each of these days, I would recommend that you just pull out 3 exercises that you semi-struggle with and that you really do struggle with. I'd say have 1 exercise where it's hard but is really tolerable, then have 2 exercises where it's extremely hard for you to pull these off, and then the same thing with the other day. However, it's worth noting that this would just depend upon what period of your season you're in. For example, if this is pre-season, then I'd recommend you have 2 medium intensity plyometrics and then 1 hard intensity plyometric. And if you're in season now, 1 medium and 2 extremely hard ones, and the same thing with the other day. If you're in your off season, however, it's much better to just override the 120 touch rule and then just focus on really low intensity work, because you want to build a base. And again, I wouldn't go any more than 2 days, because less is more. And you should also remember that even if you do end up overriding 120 touches, because once you get to pre-season and you're in season, there's a good chance that you're not even going to be seeing this volume of 120 in your entire workout. You might only be seeing 60, 70 or 80. You might not actually get as high as 120, which is worth noting. Just like I said before earlier on in the video, just because you can do more doesn't mean you should do more, because we want to focus on quality. We want to actually get adaptations in our tendons and slight improvements in our muscles, and we want our bones to get harder. And if we overstress it, you're going to have to make up for that in your diet, and there's a good chance you won't make up for that in your diet. And even if you did try, your body just can only take so much regardless. So it's much better to keep the intensity low and let your body over time be like, okay, this is intense, how do we make it easier? Okay, we need to make these changes. Okay, I'll make these changes. Has it gotten even easier? Yeah, it has, but it's still hard. Let's keep making these changes. So your body's able to fire perfectly within itself so it can improve, so you can actually get better. Because there's no point in doing a lot of volume now if that volume breaks you. Because I know that I've done plyometrics before to the point where I did so much volume and I was like, okay, I feel like I'm doing well. Because I was in my head, I was like, I'm keeping within the 120 touch rule. I haven't gone above 120 touches. But then I'd start walking and then I'd start to feel my tendons click, and I'd be like, what's going on? Why is it clicking? And I was like, you know what? Yeah, maybe it's just I'm walking too much. I need to just relax a bit more, relax. When in reality, the problem was I was doing plyometrics 3 times a day and the touches were 120, and I was doing extremely high intensity movements. Because that it's worth noting that the more intense the movements are, the less the touch rule is important. Even if you was to have a few exercises where it was really easy, if just in general for your CNS, for your central nervous system, the movements are taxing, the touch rule will be overridden, whether you like it or not. So let's say doing bounds, which is extremely easy for you. You could do bounds, obviously this isn't true, but you could do bounds, you could get 2 meters of height and 2 meters of distance with each step. It felt extremely easy for you, but if your central nervous system, this might be the most intense thing it's ever been subject to. So maybe you can only do about 30 before it's like time to call it quits. If you to do 120 for that, you could easily expect you just suddenly walk and then your legs will start to break down. So it is worth noting that you want to make sure you keep the quality up, keep the quantity low, and you stay within, but usually well below the 120 touches. Because just because you can do 120 touches doesn't mean you should. And you should also make sure you factor in which part of your season you're in. If you're early in your, not even in your season, if you're in an off season, then you want to build up adaptability, get your body prepared for the intense plyometrics you're going to be doing in pre-season and obviously when you're actually in season. If you like my video, like the video, let me know in the comments section below. Check the description, because anything I forget to say in the video, I always put in the description. And if you like my content, subscribe. Helps the channel out a lot. I post every 2 days at 1 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. If you don't know when that is, just hit the bell and then you'll be notified instantly.